Well, it's recording, so we're good to go.
Good to go. Okay. Well, first, I don't know if you want to just start off with an introduction for yourself.
Who am I? Okay. The strange one from Ireland. So my name is Karen Molan. I am obviously from Ireland. I live in Tipperary, which is in the middle of the country. Totally landlocked. Miss the sea. I have a private practice here where I combine neurolinguistic programming with Adlerian psychology and basically help people to get unstuck and get on with their lives. I've had the practice now for 20 years. Just a little over 20 years at this stage. Yeah. And yeah, so that's kind of who I am. You would know me from meeting me at a Kazi and other such places.
Yeah, because that was in Dublin in 2015. Yeah, like you said. Right?
2015, yeah. That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were, located in the middle of the country. I just
country.
Yeah, I just always
assumed everybody lives in Dublin City. Yes, yeah.
Like, what else is there? Yeah.
Well, half the population of Ireland lives in Dublin and its surrounding areas. Right, so within about 5 different counties, half the population lives, and the rest of us wise people live in the other half.
Away from the big city.
Away from everybody else.
People live in Ireland.
People which?
How many people live in Ireland?
4.8 million.
Okay, so it's pretty, I guess relative to America, of course.
It's tiny. We're tiny. I keep saying we're just a little rock on the edge of the Atlantic. It's a tiny, even compared to England, which has 66 million.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, that is a big difference.
Yeah. We're tiny. Like, so when I say that half the population lives in the other half of the country, we have depopulated areas in this country that are fantastic, because you can just go stay and you don't meet anybody. If that's what you like to do. No.
What I like
if not, go to a city. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that sounds so much different than here, because obviously I live on the East Coast of America. I don't know how familiar you are with, American geography, but
on the East Coast.
Yeah, so near Philadelphia,
cool.
New York and stuff like that. And it's so dense and populated that you can't get any quiet time unless you go out to like the middle of the country or like out west, which my wife would love to do. But that's like the only time you can get away from cars and people and like so I do envy that.
We have days here where I live where you can sit out in our garden like on a Sunday or something and there won't be any cars on the road.
It's just
just keep rubbing that in there.
in more. Well, I guess on the private practice note, I don't know if I knew you owned a private practice either.
Probably not.
I guess, what is the attitude on mental health in Ireland?
It's an improving attitude, I'll put it that way. For a long time, there was the stigma attached to it that there was something wrong with you. What is wrong with you? And people wouldn't even admit that they felt depressed or sad or anything like that, And there's a tradition as well in this country that, if there's something wrong with you, you go to the pub, you have a few drinks and talk to your mates and you'll be fine. And that kind of stuck for a long time here. But what has happened in, say, the last 10 to 15 years, maybe 12 years, the incidence of suicide in this country were exceptionally high, particularly amongst young men. And so it kind of shook up the country a little bit. And people began to be a bit more open about what they were going through, what they were suffering, different things that they had tried to help themselves, which isn't always a standard medicated route, because you go to a GP, you're going to get antidepressants. And I have no problem with that because that's their training, that's their remit. I'm not putting them down or anything. I'm just saying that sometimes that's not necessarily what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that there are other things that you could do. And we've had a couple of people who would be of the celebrity ilk, come out and talk about mental health and their journey in mental health. And that really helped a lot of the younger people in the country, the teenagers and the early people in their early 20s, to see this isn't something to be afraid of. That actually being down is something that's quite normal. Not doing something about it and letting it become something more serious is a mistake. And people began to sort of openly talk a bit more about it. Now, there's still stigma attached. There's still people who would like just not want to discuss it. And the services that would be available through our public health system would not necessarily be, they're absolutely excellent services, but there's so few of them. They're not readily available to everyone. So it's not a great system, if you know what I mean. The people in the system and the work they do is amazing, but the system itself is flawed. So we have people on waiting lists to get treated for depression, for anxiety, people who have suicidal tendencies. They're all waiting to get an appointment.
Yeah.
And it's just that's the part of the system that I absolutely hate, because people just get left. But in terms of attitudes, I think that this country, Ireland, has changed so much in the last few years. I mean, you've no idea. This was a country that was very repressed for the longest time by the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And our government, like the separation of church and state, wasn't exactly known back then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And up into the 80s in Ireland, it was quite a restricted society, especially for women. Just an example, if you're a woman working in the civil service here, which is, how would I explain that to you? Government departments, right? So if you're working for a government department and you got married, you had to give up your job.
Really?
Yeah, that was up until the 80s.
That's
yeah.
Okay, that is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So that changed, thankfully.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of campaigning has been going on to make this a more equal society and a more just society.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a couple of very serious referendums recently where into our constitution, it is now enshrined that we've had two. I was trying to think what we did. We've had two. One was gay marriage. So that's enshrined in our constitution now. So that's recognized as marriage. Nothing can touch that unless we go back to the people of the country again for another referendum, which won't happen. And the other one was abortion. That was brought in, where it was now legal in Ireland for a woman to go and ask for an abortion in a hospital. So other than that, previous to that, you had to travel abroad. So they came in the last 5 years, 6 years that we've done that.
Yeah.
So the changes have been the openness, the more acceptance that this country has developed in the last couple of years, 10, 15 years anyway, definitely has been phenomenal. It is a very different country to the one I grew up in, which I'm very pleased about. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's all negative here. It's not. It's an absolutely wonderful country and I love it to bits. It's just there was parts of it that needed to be dragged out of the dark ages almost and into current living. And we did that. So with that came a change as well in people's attitude to mental health. So it was like there was just a major shift in the country all at once. And people began to talk more about it and began to talk more about what it was like to live with anxiety, what it's like to live with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a thing that even in our schools, in our primary schools, which is your junior and middle schools, is our primary schools, I think. And your high school would be the last, our secondary school would be the last 2 years of your middle school and your high school. So that kind of age group, in the younger age group, even there, they're talking about the importance of mindfulness, mental health, meditation, relaxation techniques, and de-stressing. And like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Over here, younger people are starting to definitely be much more open about mental health. I think the new generation is much more, they talk to their friends about it. They're much more open to, different sexual orientations or preferences and all these different types of things. And it's not even, it doesn't even faze them. It seems like when they talk about it, for at least on the East Coast, for the most part, more liberal areas. I have a lot of, not a lot, but I have teenage clients that they say, "Oh, my friend started therapy, and they were talking to me, so that's why I decided to start therapy. And a lot of older people, they're becoming much more willing to at least think about therapy, go to therapy. So it is the shift is growing, at least in America, for the acceptance of mental health and willingness.
Mm-hmm.
It's still very stigmatized. I would
Yeah.
say it's still very stigmatized in minority communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's very frowned upon. It is kind of like you said. You just kind of suck it up. We don't really. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to a bar, pub. You
Yeah.
you do drugs, you do whatever besides talk to somebody about your feelings. So,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
at least in America, a lot of people still have a terrible time understanding their feelings, talking about their
Mhm.
feelings. So that is one growing. It's making progress, but it's still pretty difficult for a lot of Americans
Mhm.
to actually get to. Yeah, and similarly, only in the last 5 years, I think in 2015, gay marriage was legalized. But I mean, nowadays, abortion is legal too. But nowadays, that's kind of maybe on the chopping block. I don't know.
Yeah.
The
That's the difference between putting it into legislation and putting it into your constitution.
Yeah,
Yeah. Change of government cannot touch it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're having kind of a. I mean, you probably seen the news. There's this
Yeah.
shift. Um,
Small one happening in America at the moment. Yeah.
it's a place to live right now, but it's there's an argument, pro-life versus pro-choice and these different types of things. And
Mm.
some states are, they passed some stuff to deny women the right for abortion, and now they're considering, at least they're talking about it openly. I don't know if it's just the media is trying to make it fear,
Mhm.
rise it up a little bit, or
Yeah.
actually going to move in that direction. So there's a lot of problems, you could say. Um,
Mm.
Similarly, like on healthcare, do you guys have like government healthcare, or is it like privatized?
We've both.
No.
So we have a public health service. So if you're sick, you go to hospital and they look after you, and you will pay for it, but it's not like what you would pay in America.
No,
It's actually affordable.
not
And
affordable.
then you have what you do have in that system, there's long waiting times.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a public health, so everybody goes, it's understaffed, it's under resourced. It's, if you're going because you want to have a scan for cancer. Well, at the moment with COVID, nothing has been done, which is really ridiculous. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. If you're going for a scan, if you present with symptoms of that could possibly be cancer, you'll be brought in immediately and you'll be scanned, and that would be looked after. But if it was something like diverticulitis or some other semi-manageable condition, you could be on a waiting list for a year to a year and a half to 2 years. And I know people who've been waiting to get their hips replaced, who have been waiting 12 months to get a hip replacement operation. Then you have a private system as well.
Hmm.
So you can pay for private health insurance. And generally you get seen by consultants much faster. You still could have a 2-3 month waiting list, but you get in, it's not 12 months. Plus you get treated slightly. They say there is no difference in how you're treated in the hospital, but there is, because you're seen first.
Yeah.
So you do get treated better in that sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess, in that aspect. I mean, looking from an American perspective, everything is. We have, what we call like Medicare, Medicaid, which is the government,
Mhm.
but it's not. A lot of places don't accept it because it
Yeah.
doesn't pay well. So everything is pretty much privatized, which of course nowadays they're trying to um, push against it. But I guess that is kind of the fear mongering that a lot of people talk about,
Mm.
kind of like, oh, you'll be on a waiting list for a year or 2 years, things like that. But on the other end of things, we can't, most people can't afford a hip replacement on their private insurance anyway, because the insurance would be like, well, we're not going to pay that. So now you have to pay,
Yeah.
$30,000, and people are just flying to, Mexico or,
Yeah.
uh, somewhere over in Asia to get that done because they can't afford it. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'll just go a lifetime without a replacement, or I could just wait a year, if it actually happened like that. So there's
Yeah.
kind of winning in our
Yeah.
system here in America right now, unless you're rich.
We have a tiered private health system here, whereby you can buy a basic health cover, or you can buy slightly advanced. And the more you buy, obviously, the more you pay, the more they're willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, if you were, and we've had it with different presenters or participants coming to courses in Ireland over the years, where somebody just got sick, and literally we just pick them up and bring them to a hospital and they get treated.
That's nice.
Nobody gets turned away at the door. No one's ever turned away unless you're abusing the staff. You're not going to get turned away, and you will be treated. Now, you might get a bill at the end of it that is hefty, but it won't bankrupt you. You'll be able to pay it off.
Yeah, you can get turned away if your insurance doesn't cover, this hospital that's down the road from that one.
Yeah.
Since it,
Yeah.
but that's a very long conversation.
Yeah.
So back to
That's the "if I ruled the world" conversation.
yeah. So back to the mental health topic of things. How has COVID been for you guys over there?
We're starting to see major problems at the moment. So we're in our second lockdown now. Okay, so our first one was in March, and it was very severe. You were not allowed to travel more than 2 kilometers away from your home.
Really?
Unless your grocery store was more than 2 kilometers. And when you live in part of the country I live in, it often is. So you were allowed to leave your house to go for groceries, to go to the pharmacy, to go to a doctor, or to attend a hospital appointment, right? That's the only reason you could leave your house. If you wanted to exercise, you had to do it within a 2 kilometer range of your house, which meant a lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't. Especially we were fine here because I have a fine big garden and we live in the countryside, so there's lots of places we could walk. You could walk a lot in 2 kilometers around here because you just do circles. But if you lived in a city in an apartment, like, there wasn't really much that you could do. Yeah, it was really difficult. So that was in March when that happened. There was a real sense in the country of, this is horrible, but we're all in it together. And we're going to make through it, and we're going to get through it. And everybody bitched and moaned, and everybody complained, and everybody did all that. And I'm delighted to say I got really busy at that time. Clients I hadn't seen for 12 or 15 years were suddenly ringing up looking for appointments because they wanted to do something to protect their mental health in this situation. They were very proactive about it, which I was very pleased about. It meant I worked a lot, which was fun as well. And we were very lucky as well, because a very rare thing happened in this country. And you may remember this from when you were in Dublin in 2015. We didn't get any rain.
Really?
We got sunshine. Yeah. We had some of the most glorious sunshine we've ever had during that lockdown. So people got to sit out on balconies, or got to go to the park, or got to sit out by wherever they could. And it made it much easier. So we were doing great. Everything was completely, fully opened up again by August. And then 2 weeks ago, we went into lockdown again because our numbers were going sky high. And this time around, it is much harder on people.
Is it?
This time around, it's kind of like, oh my God, is this the way it's going to be forever? It's this attitude of, well, we're fine down here. The problem is actually up in Dublin. So we shouldn't be locked down. They should be locked down. And there's no sense of we're all in this together anymore. Yeah. Now people are looking at, well, County Tipperary, the county I live in, we have no cases in this county. So why should we be locked down? You're getting a lot of that kind of attitude coming, which is very divisive, especially in a pandemic. And what's happening then is that's eroding at people's confidence and eroding at people's ability and their resilience to keep going and to stay the course. So we've noticed as well what's happening, and I was actually talking to some colleagues of mine before in the last few days when I knew I'd be talking to you about it, talking to colleagues who are working in the public health service, and they're saying what they're seeing now is a huge amount of people who just aren't coping. They just don't have the coping skills that they had. Their resilience is gone. And there's high levels of depression as well. that people are feeling the disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling the isolation. They're feeling that there's no one out there that they can talk to, connect with in a real way, that
Yeah.
Zoom calls just don't do it, And if you're talking to your therapist on Zoom and it's only ever on Zoom, then there's a thing in NLP that we talk about, which is anchoring, which is when you keep repeating something, a stimulus,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates an automatic reaction in you. So when somebody sits to the computer to talk to their therapist and it's the same background and they never get to change what they're looking at,
Yeah.
then that actually becomes quite miserable. Even the best of therapists make it quite miserable. And I'm constantly saying to my clients, could you look away from the screen every now and then? Like, do this.
Yeah. Look out the window. Yeah.
Yeah, do something, like just break up, because you can't, like, you don't maintain that level of eye contact in a session with clients.
Yeah.
So now it's very intensely connected on Zoom. And it's too much for people. They're not getting the same benefit from their sessions that they were getting. And the therapists are working their butts off trying to make it as interesting and as worthwhile for the client as they possibly can, as well as like mentally beneficial for the client. So it's a complicated situation. And what a lot of us are worrying about now is what's going to happen next month, the month after, as the winter sets in this country. It gets very gray,
Mm-hmm.
gets very, like, clouds come down low. It does close in on you if you're not used to it. And we're just wondering how that's going to impact people now when their resilience is just that little bit lower. And we're hoping we're wrong, but we're suspecting that there's going to be a high level of people suffering from depression and anxiety coming out of this year and
Yeah.
heading into next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe multiple points on that. I always do wonder about the, how the weather affects everyone over there. Just because I do hear, there's always a lot of rain. Despite when I went, it was, I packed for the rain. And of course, it was like the hottest.
You're one of the few.
I'm just sweating in long clothes because I expected rain. But yeah, the wintertime, at least for over here too, to backtrack a little bit, at least for COVID, people have been experiencing, a lot of depression. I think just in general, the trend before COVID even started, there's definitely been a rise in depression, anxiety. I think just burnout in general. But with COVID on top of that, um, millions of people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
Millions of people, stopped school in person. Now they're kind of back in school, and now the cases are way higher than they were back in March, at least for here. And no one knows if there's going to be another lockdown. I don't think there. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's a right way to do it, because if they do have another lockdown, people are just going to, protest and riot and not have it, because the first time people didn't even respect it, right? And that's kind of why our cases never went down. Of course, now it's rising even much more so, because people are back in school. People are kind of burnt out on COVID, following the rules. And with flu season now, and winter coming, of course, it's just kind of like a double whammy that's hitting a lot of people. And no one knows if there's going to be another lockdown next year or anything like that, or if the cases continue on the rise that they are now, because it is very high. But I have had a lot of clients that I've never met in person, just because I've been doing teletherapy since March. So our entire relationship is just through the screen, which is odd. It's different. Of course, a lot of people are happy that they don't have to commute anymore, which is, one thing, but it is a much different relationship. And people are talking about, how COVID is affecting them, but now everyone's just kind of in the norm of, this is what it is. How do I manage things? But it is very difficult, because since we're so densely populated over here, at least, a lot of people do use a lot of like social supports. People go out to bars or restaurants, things like that, but bars are, closed, or it's only limited access, or they're outdoor seating, or a lot of people um, aren't seeing other people. They're not talking to the network. So that's what at least I'm seeing with my
Yeah.
clients right now. A lot of, like, I don't know how to cope with it. I don't know how to talk to people about it.
Yeah. It's that isolation.
Yeah.
That's what people are. It's really, it's the crucialty of connection, isn't it? That like people are just not getting that connection anymore, and they really do feel that somehow it's like a loss, like a grief, that they don't have
Mhm.
the human contact anymore. And like when you're somebody like me, I'm a hugger. This is hard.
I was just talking to my wife about that. Like, I don't know the last time, I even like shook someone's hand or gave someone a hug,
Yeah.
because it used to be so
Yeah.
normal. You just, hey, how's it going? And go from there. But now it's just like, hi, you know.
Hi from a distance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I changed my car recently, and when I was leaving the garage where I bought it, and the dealer, he put his fist up like that to me, and I actually had to do it as, what the hell, what are you? Did you actually try and punch me or something? But he was just like, because that's what you do now. You don't shake hands anymore. It took me like that split second to go,
What's going
what? Oh yeah, thanks, bye.
on?
It's just crazy. The new normal. I don't like calling it the new normal. This is just my own pet peeve, because we're going to be with this for a while. Vaccines will come and go. Viruses will mutate. It'll just be a thing for a while until this burns itself out eventually, like all viruses.
Yeah.
But I like to call this the better normal,
Yeah.
because
It's,
yeah, it isn't for a lot of people,
yeah.
and I get that. But it is an opportunity for people to reconnect in a different way with themselves.
Yep.
And it gives them a chance to kind of just do that little bit of inner reflection that maybe they never gave themselves the chance to do.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of trying to get it through to people that this could be it. It isn't for everyone, and I appreciate that, but it could well be a better normal for people going forward. And the amount of people who've taken up things like meditation is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because that is a big thing I've been trying to teach a lot of my clients. How do you put yourself first now?
Mm-hmm.
Take care of yourself. How do you reconnect with yourself? Because at least over in America, it's very easy to try to avoid looking inwards.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
now,
have way too many distractions.
yeah, there's so many distractions. Like you said, Netflix, you can just watch that all day. And now it's, people are bored of Netflix to an extent. People still do, but
Yeah.
it is just, I've had 9 months of looking at myself. Might as well look at myself now, or look inwards, or how do I get a new hobby? How do I meditate? How do I do some art? How do I start going on walks? And I think it's, in a weird way, beneficial if I have to find the silver lining in it. It's given me an opportunity to, like I said, it's my first year of marriage, so it's given us an opportunity to really just learn how to, this is what we got, right? How do we make the most of it? How do we
Make it work.
yeah? How do we make it work? How do you find time for yourself while being kind of inward? How do you learn
Oh yeah.
new things, try new things? Paint. I don't know, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. So that has definitely been one experience of this whole COVID.
Yeah. I tend to be somebody who will look for the upside in most things that I can find, and I know they're not often there. But damn, I'll dig until I find one. It's just who I am. But for my clients, what I'm noticing is that when I talk to them about using this as an opportunity to regroup, to reassess your life, to see, it could well be that you're bang on track and you're doing exactly what you want to be doing with your life. Fantastic. Great. Give yourself a pat on the back. Keep going.
Yeah.
Or it could be that you discover, you know what? I actually never learned Spanish, and I always wanted to learn Spanish, and now is the time to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
So then do it. you know, do that. Or it could be that, you know, I don't like the way my life is going. It could be something more serious, like not just a dream that I had to learn Spanish, but it could be like, you know, I absolutely hate the relationship I'm in, and now that I'm living with them in lockdown, I'm definitely getting out. You know, it could be that. You know,
Definitely.
And there's a number of people as well who have gone and changed careers in the middle of lockdown, which I thought was really interesting and very brave of them, that they just decided, no, I'm not doing this. I hate this job now that I've been home. See, we got paid to stay home.
Not us.
In Ireland. Yeah. Yeah. So that, like an awful lot of people have lost their jobs in this country. We have huge unemployment now. And we had it pretty low. We were doing really well. But they introduced the pandemic unemployment payment, or PUP as we call it. And so if you, from March, everybody who was let go got €350 every week from the government,
No,
just to stay home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that would be about $425, $430 a week.
Much better. It's much. So in America, we had one check sent to us last 9 months of pandemic, and it was for $1,200. So
lovely.
Yeah. So if you equate over, you know, a long 9 months now, that's probably like 20 cents a week or something like
20
that.
cents a week is what you got. Yeah. So we had, because people had that resource. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, okay, that wasn't a huge amount of money to a lot of people who may have mortgages, bills or whatever, car loans, whatever. But for an awful lot of people, it gave them a breathing space to just sit back and go, okay, what do I want to do? Am I happy returning to this job? Is this the career path I want to be on? And it actually gave them the space to change. And I was really pleased that a few people reached out to me to say, do you think this would be something we could talk about? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. You know, let's get you going where you need to go. And people did a huge amount of online courses.
Yeah.
Masses, which again kept their mental health in good check, because they had purpose to get up in the morning. What we're noticing this time round is that it's like, well, we've done that now. Now there is nothing left on Netflix or Amazon Prime that I want to see.
Yeah.
I've seen everything that's on the television. I've done all the courses. I've painted all the pictures. I meditate every day now. Yeah. You know, what now do I do? Yeah. And this is the part, this is the time that's worrying therapists here the most, is that this is when we're seeing people are starting to give up and just go, shit, there's nothing, you know, we can do nothing.
Yeah, that was kind of I think Americans skipped that first part and kind of went to the second part of like, I give up, you know, there's nothing that I can do. Yeah, so that has definitely been, I think that seems like at least a big difference in how Ireland approached, you know, a lockdown, unemployment, and how, you know, Americans kind of approach that. Because at first, you know, everyone was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to learn another language or learn how to love myself. But that lasted for like a week. And then everyone's like, I don't want to be, you know, inside anymore. Yeah. Even though before the mandatory, you know, kind of recommended lockdown, everyone wanted to be inside and do nothing.
Yeah.
But when, you know, you tell an American not to do something, they're like, I'm going to do it.
No, not do it. Yeah. Yeah, we can be a bit like that here too. Yeah. You know, I think there was a thing that I kept saying to people was, be careful what you wish for. You wanted not to have to work and have money coming into your account every week from the government. Well, you got it.
You got it. Now what?
Yeah. And now what? Yeah. And it has caused an awful lot of people to reassess, to think. But it has also shown people how their lives weren't so bad.
Yeah.
They were complaining about things that really weren't worth complaining about.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say that I noticed the first time around in lockdown was there was a massive, massive community involvement in looking after the elderly in our community. Mm-hmm. I mean, massive involvement. The local sports clubs would collect their shopping list for them, go in and get the groceries, because anyone over 70 had to cocoon. They weren't allowed to leave their house for any reason. So unless it was to see a doctor, that was the only thing they could leave the house for. So if they needed groceries, a lot of people, we don't have delivery services of groceries around here. Well, there's one supermarket that does it, that's it. But all the supermarkets suddenly started doing deliveries. And then the local sports clubs started getting involved, and you would find people like just a lot of elderly people were complaining that they didn't get any rest because there was so many people talking to them through their windows, could you all go home now and give us a break? But it was like they were there, they made sure that people weren't feeling too isolated, weren't feeling alone. We don't have that now because our schools and colleges are still open, even though we're in a lockdown. Like we're in like a level 5 lockdown, the highest level you can get, but they've left the schools and the colleges open. So the young people who were around and free to do this and who needed to do it to keep themselves engaged as well, now aren't there. And so we're noticing that that's missing this time as well, which is making it harder for people.
Yeah. I mean, at least first time, that's definitely a good notion to have that, because over here, no one really cared. That anyone that was like most susceptible to it. In a lot of parts of the country, it was just kind of like, well, if they die, they die, right? And it was just like they just deal with it, and like it's a very, I don't know, America's very individualistic, where it's just what am I, what about me? How do I take care of me? How do I not get bothered? And so people really were just like, okay, yeah, leave the old people inside, but I still want to go do my thing. But then it's like, well, what if it spreads to the old people, and how do we take care of them? And there was no kind of like that sense of community or helping people out, at least over here. A lot of places.
That's one thing I know that Ireland has still managed to hold on to throughout all the years, is that sense of community, that sense of togetherness. That in where I live, like, is the small little area. It's the nearest town to us is Cashel, and that's got a population of I think 6,500. That's the town and surrounding areas. Like, it's tiny, and even within that, then there's little pockets of communities, and they all just sort of step up and regularly step up and do stuff for each other. So it was great that they were able to do that during it. But what I'm noticing is that it's just not happening as much now. People are becoming a little bit, there's a little bit of anger coming.
Yeah.
People, we're seeing that a bit more. And there's a little bit of resentment towards a government that has previously were the best thing ever because they were giving them money to stay at home. And now it's like, well, you're giving me money to stay home, but I don't want to be at home. I want to be out. So now you're getting that resentment that people forget, like, they were great 6 months ago.
It was so good last time, but now this time, a little bored. On another note, kind of like you mentioned earlier, how is the I guess the alcoholism, the alcohol culture in Ireland? Because obviously, from an outsider perspective, you always just hear,
oh yeah,
go to the pub,
drinkers.
Drinkers. So what is like the reality on
that? Yes, there's a high level of alcoholism in this country. It's not as high as what it was, but like, this is a country that closed its pubs 2 weeks before Patrick's Day. I mean, if we can do it, you can do it.
That's true.
Like, I had friends in Germany and France saying, like, and they were literally posting this, that Ireland closed its pubs 2 weeks before Patrick's Day. If the Irish can do it, we can do it, and I just thought that was so funny. It's so cute. I think there's somebody in America posted as well. But it's a thing. It's the culture here has always been, all events are centered around the pub. It's like, if you want to do a fundraiser, you hold it in the pub. If you want to do a table quiz, you hold it in the pub. If you want, most things happen in the pub. And there's been a slight shift in the last 10 years, and I mean slight shift, where particularly the younger generation are more inclined to, let's go out and do something. They go bowling, we go for a meal, go cinema, do something that isn't just the pub, right? But I would love to say it's very different here. It's not. It's still a very, like, every town has a pub, no matter how small it is. I think there's, hang on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 15 pubs on the main street of the town nearest to me.
That's a lot of pubs.
Yeah. And that's a tiny town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's others upside streets. That's just on the main street.
So it's definitely a big drinking culture over there.
It's a huge part of our culture. It's a huge part of our economy. The tax the government get from the alcohol is pretty substantial. What I will say is that with the lockdown, one of the things that has come up is the higher instance of domestic violence, right? And a lot of that is because people are now drinking at home. They're buying their alcohol from the off license or from the supermarket and going home and drinking. And usually the measure in a pub may be that size, the measure at home is usually that size.
Yeah.
And you convince yourself it's the same as what the pub put into your glass, but it's not. It's usually double or treble or quadruple. So then that has led to a much higher instance of domestic violence in this country, unfortunately. We've noticed that during lockdown. And of course, people can't get out of that situation. They're trapped in it. So that's very hard. With the culture here towards alcohol, people are starting to be more mindful of the fact around the relationship between alcohol and mental health. Just that it can be quite a depressant. You get the buzz, obviously, but then you get the come down the next day. And that just means the hangover. And then again, our services towards alcoholism are probably better than our services towards other issues that we might have in the mental health field, but addiction services in this country tend to be quite good. They've had to be, over the years. And they've been and they've been honed. They're very effective. Lots of practice. But I think that people are starting to just be a bit more responsible around alcohol. There was laws introduced around your ability to drive so that there's no drink driving. And that was a big changing point in this country. The people just stopped abusing it. And then, it's just education. The more we educate the young people, the less likelihood they still have binge drinking parties. They still go nuts. But we're hoping that it's churning, but I'm not super optimistic about that one.
That's fair. I mean, drinking is definitely a big part of American culture. I don't know if it's as big as Ireland's.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if anywhere.
No. No. I can remember one of the first times I was in America, and it was myself, my husband, our daughter, and she was very young at the time. She was only about, I think, 4 or 5. And we'd been out traveling around. We were in the Massachusetts area. We'd been out. I still laugh over this one. We'd been out driving around. We'd been seeing all the sights, and so we were hungry. And there was a pub over there that was doing meals. So we thought, great, let's go. And we went. We did not even give it a second thought. We brought our 5-year-old daughter with us, and she sat at the table beside us, and we ordered chicken nuggets for her. And we got stared at that we were bringing a child to the pub.
Yeah.
And we're like, we do this the whole time in Ireland. It's not late, it wasn't late in the evening. It was only about 6 o'clock as far as we were concerned.
Yeah.
Children are allowed in pubs in Ireland up to 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then they have to leave. Now that's changed since, but we were people were looking at us like we were the worst parents in the world bringing our child to a pub. Yeah. So no, your culture with the pub is very different to ours. It's a family event here.
That is definitely fair. Okay. I guess the other a few more questions that I do have about Ireland. I guess going back to the weather. So how does the weather kind of affect your guys' mental health?
We're used to it, you see.
Right?
If you grow up in this and this is all you've ever known, then that's fine. That you're used to it. I mean, we all hark back to, I remember when I was younger, the summers were longer and we always got great weather. We didn't. You get 2 weeks, 3, 4 if you're lucky. Yeah, and that's it. And we say it rains here. It does. It rains nearly every single day during the winter anyway. It's not raining today.
Not today, yeah.
Yet. But it rained enough yesterday for 2 days. And then what we have noticed, and I don't know if this is a climate change thing or not, but the air has become damper over the last few years. So we are noticing that people are coughing more, spluttering more, which when you have a pandemic isn't great. But we're also noticing that because it is, I don't know if I could turn the camera for you to see out the window, but like literally the sky is grey. There's no blue sky out there. It is just all grey. There's no white fluffy clouds. It is just grey, right? And if you're not used to that, that can be quite depressing for people. If you live on the west coast of Ireland by the sea, like it sounds idyllic and it truly is one of the most spectacular places. And we try to keep it a secret from you tourists, but you come anyway. But during the winter, that literally is just a wall of grey mist coming at you. That just surrounds your house, surrounds you, surrounds your car. And if you're not used to that, if you don't know about that, then that can be quite daunting to live in that.
Yeah,
you know.
I would imagine.
Whereas for a lot of us, we're like, oh, lovely, let's go. Oh, we're like, look, nobody can see us. There's nobody there anyway to see you, but nobody can see us. And it's different. To us, it's a different kind of grey. We get used to it. I know the book was 50 Shades of Grey, but we had that down here in this country long before that book was written. We have, I'd say, it'll be another 2 days before we see blue sky.
Yeah.
Based on the density of the cloud cover. Yeah. And then you could end up here on the middle of winter and it's just nothing but blue skies. That's just the nature of it. When it's geography. It's where we're located. We're literally just this tiny little island. You got the massive Atlantic over here, and then you have a sea over here, and then you have the northern part of Europe, which is cold as like it's nasty cold. Like it gets you get the horribleness of the coldness of snow without the benefit of the snow.
Yeah.
So you get the damp air without you don't get the crisp dry air. If you go further north, you get that. But where we live on that belt, you get that kind of dampness the whole time coming in. This country is unbelievably damp is a word you used to describe it in the winter. It's like nothing ever dries out. And then what you find then is that people here, there's a friend of mine, she's American, she lives in Ireland. She's been living here for years now. And she says she's always surprised. She says one thing she loves is Irish people go to the window and go, oh gosh, it's raining. Like for surprise. Yeah. And like, doesn't that normally happen every day here? Yeah, but I didn't think it would rain today. Like it's a big surprise, And there's different types of rain as well. It's not just rain. You could have mist. You could have a light mist. You could have a heavy mist. You could have a thunderstorm. You could have just a rain, just regular rain, or you could have a downpour of rain. They're all different.
Yeah, over here it's like it's raining. And,
it's raining. Yeah.
It's raining. It's great. It's raining, yeah.
I think I was walking around. Where was I with them? I was down in West Cork with some of the Americans who were here for the Irish summer conference, the Illyrian summer conference, and it started to rain, according to them. And they were whipping out their jackets and putting them on, and I'm walking along like, somebody says, do you want an umbrella, Karen? You have no coat with you. And I was like, no, it's just not raining. And they're like, no, this is rain. It's raining, Karen. It's raining. And I was like, not at all. This is just mist. Be gone in a minute.
Yeah, from my perspective, of course, like on the west of, like the northwest of America, it's notorious for the rain and clouds, and that's about it. For here, we have 4 seasons. So we have summer, even though lately, the past few years, it has just been raining a lot more. Probably not as much as you guys. But we definitely get a lot of rain, and we barely get snow anymore, which is unfortunate because we just get kind of like a rainy winter now. But we still have the 4 seasons.
Oh, welcome to our world.
It is, for me, and I know a lot of other people, it is kind of, it is mentally gloomy when it's gray skies or raining. And especially if it's like a light rain. If it's a heavy rain, it's a little bit more like pleasant. But if it's like a light rain, no one wants to go outside, and it's just kind of like, I don't want to deal with that. And then when it rains in the winter time, a lot of people are like, I wish it was just snow.
Yeah.
Because, of course, driving in snow sucks, but it's still nice to look at. And we don't really get snow too much anymore, which is unfortunate. But I could not imagine, an entire year of just like, it's just going to rain. We get a couple sunny days and that's just it.
It rains here, I think 9 months of the year out of the 12, right?
Yeah.
That's what we get. And sometimes like yesterday, we got 2 days rain yesterday. Like no, it was literally downpours yesterday. So we have no rain today. So people will be like, oh, look, there's no rain today. They're super excited.
Yeah.
and then tomorrow it rains. We go, oh, it's raining. Again, the surprise of it all. I think in terms of mental health, what it does to us here is very little because we're used to it. If you grew up in this, if you moved here and you came from like sunny clime, it's very difficult, and there's quite a lot of people immigrate to Ireland from Eastern Europe where they're used to proper snow, as we call it. They get like 2-3 feet of snow every winter, as opposed to what we get. We get 2 inches of snow and the country will nearly come to a standstill because it's like nobody can cope with it, which is like, oh my God, it's snowing.
Yeah.
It's not rain. What do we do? Yeah. And I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we had the storm that they refer to as the beast from the east. And there was drifts of 8 to 12 feet of snow up in parts of the east coast of Ireland. That like roofs caved in on sheds on farmers' lands because of the level of snow that was on it, because they're never used to having to take it off. And I know here we're kind of in the country, in the middle of the country, but so we didn't get as much, but we had about 1 foot to 2 feet of snow. And it was magical, but we were done after 3 days. It's like, enough now.
Like, go away.
This country was locked down for that time. Like the government put out a notice to say at 3 o'clock on Friday, everybody's to go home from work unless you're essential services, and don't go back until Monday. So everybody got a free weekend.
Yeah.
As the snow.
It's very, it's I guess it's so hard to compare, Ireland's weather system to America's, because America's, you have literally every single climate in this country. So like, snow in some places, like in Florida or, the South or Texas, they get an inch of snow down there and everyone loses their mind. No one knows how to drive. It is a shutdown, state of emergency.
That's kind of us here. Yeah.
Like up north, if you don't get like 2 feet of snow, you're like, it's whatever. We'll just continue walking to the bar or something like that.
Yeah. What's wrong with you? That holiday that we took to America, it was the first time we went, and we went in February. And we hired a car and drove around. We went to Western Massachusetts. We went up to New Hampshire, Vermont, crossed into Maine, and back down into Massachusetts. So I was doing a lot of the driving, which was through snow. And it was like, do you know what they say? Ignorance is bliss. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. It was a good thing too. We just kept driving, And on one occasion, I hit the brakes when you're not supposed to. And the car just kind of skated a little bit, and then it rectified itself. And I was like, why do people make such a big deal out of this? This is great. And then I realized, you're still in the wrong lane, Karen. Get into your own lane.
That does happen. And you're just kind of like, we're just kind of used to it. Or we have cars at the time for that. We're like, that's whatever. Just don't drive too fast, and that's the norm.
Yeah. You get snow over here, and the whole place just goes, everybody forgets how to drive.
Stay inside. Please lock us down. I guess the last question that I have, are there any kind of like major misconceptions about Ireland or its people?
Yeah. There's quite a few.
Yeah.
No, we're not all alcoholics. We do like a drink sometimes, but not everybody drinks. People, because we're such a small little island, people don't realize, and some people do, the influence of Ireland on the world and the influence we've had on the world because of emigration. So no matter where you go in Ireland or in the world, you're going to find somebody Irish or of Irish descent there somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's an Irish comedian who says, we don't invade, Well, you know, Ireland doesn't go to war. We don't invade other countries. We infest them. We just go in and we live there and we spread the good cheer around the place, and that's it. I think I was in Cusco in Peru. Yeah, and there was an Irish pub in the square, like in the middle of Peru. Like,
Yeah.
come on, yeah, it's just unnatural. It was hilarious and fabulous and weird all at once. This is a very, very progressive country now, and it has had a reputation of not being, of being quite under the thumb of the Catholic Church, and that's changed a lot. And I don't think people realize that about Ireland just yet. It's a very innovative country, and the industries that we have here are quite cutting edge, you know. So we've become a little gem for industry here. So we have all the big, like Facebook, Google, eBay, all of those have their European headquarters in Ireland. But we also have large pharmaceutical companies that are doing amazing work, generating new, vaccines at the moment, but also innovations in terms of medical devices. And that's really big in this country as well. And then the one thing that I think people don't get about Ireland, which is, and they confuse it with the alcohol, right? They think we say we're up for the crack, right? And we don't mean cocaine. Crack spelled CRAIC, which means fun and joy and laughter. Like, it's an Irish word.
Yeah.
And that's what Irish people love, is going out and having the crack, which is just hanging out with people, having fun, sometimes in a pub, not always. Okay, most times in a pub, but not always. But it's a mentality that there's more to life than drudgery. Your job shouldn't be drudgery, you know, and if it is, then you need to do something outside of your job. You need to either change your job or do something outside your job to make your life full of crack. You know, you want to have fun, you want to have joy. And I think it's because of the history of Ireland, because we're a country that had been invaded so many times and ruled by others a few times, that Irish people fought hard to hold on to their identity. Because so many people emigrated, we've kind of spread ourselves everywhere. Like, I mean, literally, if you look at a proper map, not the ones that they show you in schools, but an actual map that shows, you know, that Africa is an awful lot larger than people think it is, you know, and America is much smaller. Ireland is like a pinhead dot, you know, literally on that map, we're a pinhead dot. And yet we're everywhere. You know, we go everywhere. And it's because of that feeling of wanting to enjoy life, wanting to be part of a community, wanting to connect with people. That's what we do really well here. And we never, ever shy away from connecting with people. You know, if you want to be on your own, we'll leave you on your own. But like, we'll check with you a few times. You still want to be on your own, you know.
Yeah.
We'll touch base to make sure you're okay being on your own. Like, and that's literally the Irish mentality, that, you know, you are part of a community here. And that community now is worldwide, because we're everywhere.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that sentiment, that at least in America, if someone's Irish, they'll let you know, and they're very, you know, friendly and captivating in their own way. And the Irish pub, now that you mention it, that is kind of I don't know if it's been I don't want to say adopted in America, but that is like, you know, every you know, bar area, you know, there's an Irish pub, if not, you know, like 3 of them. So that's definitely a theme around bars, at least in America, especially in the Northeast, because that is where a lot of Irish people kind of immigrated to.
A lot of Irish people will travel to Spain on holidays, and a lot of English people would traditionally go to Spain on holidays as well. So you have a lot of English pubs, and then you have a lot of Irish pubs beside them. And there's a cultural history thing there of competition, and that goes back a while. And no matter where you go, like, you will find at the end of the night, the Irish pub is the one that the sing-song is in. Everywhere you go, like, that's the pub that has the sing-song, no matter where, you know, you travel. That's the one. Yeah. And it's the one you want to go to at the end of the night. You know, it's the one you want to be in, because that's where the most fun is going to be had. And it's not that that's where the most alcohol is going to be consumed per se. That does happen there too. But it's where the most fun and the most energy and the most connection with people is, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And like I had friends who were traveling around Europe. They live in Memphis, and they were in Europe traveling, and they were in, I think it was Paris during a World Cup, football World Cup, and there was a lot of rioting going on between certain fractions and certain countries' supporters, and so a lot of people were just being turfed out of the country. And she sent me a message saying, you know, we're in Paris and this is happening and we don't know what to do. And I would go look for the people wearing the green, white, and gold. Just tell them you're friends with people in Ireland. You'll be fine. And they did, and they were.
Look at that. Yeah.
They just literally went, where are the Irish hanging out? And that's where we went. And
yeah. When I went over there back in 2015, I don't, it is a very welcoming atmosphere. Like, you know, at least in America, a lot of people kind of leave you alone for the most part, unless you are in an Irish, you know, bar, pub, then people do tend to get a little bit more friendly and rowdy. But over in Dublin, of course, people will just, you know, talk to you, you know, to have a conversation, and then they just leave you alone afterwards. You know, they don't like, you know, follow you out, you know, side or, you know, follow you around. It's just, you know, everyone just is very friendly, and there's kind of like a sense of community, and, you know, not feeling like you're, you know, kind of excluded. At least that's the feeling that I
standing at a bar ordering drinks in Ireland and standing at a bar ordering drinks in America are two completely different experiences.
Yeah.
Two completely. In Ireland, you're standing, you've put your order in. The first thing you do is you turn to the person beside you, go, well, how are you? And they go, grand, thanks. Yeah, you're up for it. Yeah. And you get the life story.
Yeah.
You do that in America and you probably get thrown out of the pub, you know, for soliciting or something. It's like you go, well, how are you? And they go, what? No, what you want? You know,
or you
they get very suspicious.
Yeah, you get talking to the person you don't want to talk to, and then it's like, oh, this guy.
So we have I think Irish people have mastered the art of the disengagement. You know, how to disengage from a conversation and walk away, you know, without leaving the other person feel like they're bereft. We usually leave them feeling like we cared, you know, whether we did or we didn't.
A bar, and if I mention, you know, people will start going, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a mental health therapist. Then I'll get someone's life story, you know, and it's
free
like,
therapy.
Free therapy, okay. Yes. You know, and it's like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom now, and then you kind of hide and run away. But
So, on the way back, you kind of leave your bar, drink at the bar, and keep going. Yeah.
Go to the other side of the bar.
I think one of the things I think that a lot of, and I don't think it's America per se, but I think Europe probably has this notion of Ireland as being quaint little country, you know, where they don't do things correctly and they're always sort of taking chances with stuff. And they're slowly, in the last few years, coming around to realizing actually they're a force to be reckoned with in that country. Yeah. Because when the crash came in 2008, and we were literally bankrupt in this country. This country was bankrupt. We were in trouble. And the Troika came in and they told us what we had to do to literally pull ourselves out of it, which was really punishing for the people of this country. Financially, it was really punishing. But this is the thing, we did it. Okay, we just got on with it. We complained bitterly. God, Irish people love to complain. We complained like bitterly. There was marches, there was protests, there was everything, but we got on with it. And we did what had to be done. And nobody didn't pay their taxes and nobody like created any major problems. And we came out the other end and we came out much stronger with a determination of we're never doing that again.
Yeah.
And now Europe is kind of going, oh, especially the European Union that we're part of, you know, it's looking at us going, okay, that was impressive, you know, that you did it.
Yeah.
God, you complained a lot, but you did it, you know. And we're like, yeah, well, you know, you got it better out than in. Yeah. And we're this is very hard soil to be digging, but we're digging it. And that's kind of the attitude we had to it. And I think that's changed the perception of Ireland within Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's changed how we handle things and how we just got on with it and fixed the problem and got back to being a profitable country. I don't know what we're going to be like after the pandemic. I don't think anything's going to be profitable.
I don't know if anyone knows, but
yeah, but we'll pick the pieces up again and we'll get on with it. That I'm sure of. You know, that I know.
Yeah.
Resilience, actually, that's what the Irish people have, is resilience.
I definitely think America could pick up a few things from the Irish on that sense of community and pushing through as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to go and invest a bit more, don't we? Yeah. We need to send a few more over.
Send a few more over. Please do that because we need some help. I appreciate you sitting down, talking to me. Yeah, it was a pleasure. 5 years, too long, but wait. We'll have to do this.
Have to get yourself on a plane when you can and come back and visit.
Yeah, well,
outside of Dublin.
Yeah, once we're allowed outside of the country, then maybe we will, because we're supposed to, my wife and I were supposed to go to, we're going to go all around Europe this summer for our honeymoon, whereas COVID hit and we weren't allowed. And then things kind of started opening up again and the flights were allowing. So we're going to go back into France over Thanksgiving. And then, France is getting hit now and America is getting worse. So we're still trapped here. So
France is in lockdown.
Still locked down. So maybe next year or the year after that we'll make it.
I would be inclined to wait till next year if I was you and do it when like there was American tourists came into Ireland just as we started to open up, and for the first time ever they were not welcomed.
No.
Yeah, they were not, because people refused to take them out on boats. They refused to hire them, rent out bicycles to them. And there was uproar. Half the country was saying, what are you doing? Like, this is our industry. We need tourism to survive. But the other half was saying, like, yeah, they have them quarantined for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When they were asked, when did you come to Ireland? They were like, 3 days ago. Yeah, get back indoors. You're not allowed out yet, And they got quite a shock. But I think if they came, I think what's happening now is that the country's getting ready to welcome everyone back next year.
Makes sense.
And like people are preparing now, and hotels, bed and breakfast, people who rent out houses, they're actually getting the systems in place now to be able to welcome people back, because this year without tourists, because the town I live in is a big tourist town, and like it was unnatural.
Yeah.
Like there was no traffic in our town. Our town is normally busy with tourist traffic and lots of buses of tourists, It's Wednesday, it's Ireland, that kind of tour. And it was a bit eerie not to have tourists here this year. So I think everyone's really excited about the thought of bringing them back next year. And I think most of the European countries are the same.
Yeah.
So if you hang on till next year, the welcome you'll get will be pretty profound.
Well, I will definitely have to make that.
Especially Italy. If you can get to Italy next year, they will be starving for tourists.
I'll go all over, anyone that I have me, I'll be there.
So now's the time to start making connections with the Akazi crowd.
Anyone open up next year,
Yeah. You know what? I'd say if you put a message into the Akazi group and said, hey, I'm thinking of traveling to Europe next year, you probably could plan an itinerary around where your free beds would be.
Yeah.
That's what Illyrians are like. They're the closest things to Irish people you can find.
Well,
they just go, yeah, sure, there's a bed there. Try yourself down.
Definitely have to go do that. So hopefully I'll make it up soon, and then we can have a conversation in real life as opposed to
person.
Yes, yeah. That was the thing. So thank you.
That would be great.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for doing this. Have a great sunny day, hopefully, for you guys, or it's a rainy day. I don't know whatever it'll be for you. So,
it'll be a great day.
Yeah. Be a great day. All right.